summer's going quick now.
Oh, you.
And my first guest today, speaking of summer going quick,
Yeah, really.
they've been visiting the school district. Dr. Dan Kieser is here, and he'll give you an update of what's going on in the school district.
Good morning, happy Friday, everyone.
Yeah.
Happy August, or it's like happy August.
Yeah.
Although we've had a few families move into Stoughton like over the weekend, and so they've been registering this weekend. We have some kids who are like, "Hello, I'm here." And, you know, so it's been exciting to see the little ones. I always enjoy these opportunities, and in the Stoughton Area School District, we've been doing a lot of stuff over the last 15 months, and going to get an update on all that is happening and hopefully wrapping up here in the next couple of weeks. But I want to start off with something that's actually new in the community and supporting the school district, and that is the Stoughton Exceptional Experience Fund. It's an educational foundation that was born out of the brain here, so caveat. Lower that expectation. But with all the generosity that this community bestows upon the school district and many other organizations in and around Stoughton, I always ask myself, like, how do we increase the plate of generosity so that every slice on the plate gets a little bit more? You know, we've been fortunate and blessed in the school district to have generous family donors, community donors that have given to the schools, given to our arts and our athletics and so forth. And that generosity through the Stoughton Community Foundation, the Bryan Foundation, and so forth, have gotten so many requests that oftentimes they have to say, you know, we can only accept one application from one entity. So if we're going to provide an application for new programming in the theater department, it's going to support the theater department. But if halfway through the year we have this great opportunity, someone qualifies for a national competition, we have to find it within our budgets to do that. The Stoughton Exceptional Education Experience Fund is an educational foundation that is going to support those types of experiences. Stoughton Community Foundation has and continues to be our organizer for all of our scholarships. We have one of the largest, if not the largest, scholarship nights every year in Dane County. And we are augmenting this with a foundation that is focused in on supporting experiences for students or for staff impacting students moving forward. Launched brand new, there's a flyer up here that I'll put over by the coffee if anyone's interested in learning more about it. And because it is brand new, we don't have like a brag book or a wow slide or anything like that. We're actually in the process of doing some capital fundraising for an endowment to be able to award grants hopefully this year. Once we have enough money to actually award grants, the grant applications will be provided to our educators, and through that process we hope to be able to increase the impact to our students by awarding grants to provide exceptional experiences either through training, through fundraising to go and experience something, or to bring experiences to the school district. Now this is tied just to the Stoughton Area School District. So you have to be impacting the Stoughton Area School District to participate in this. So this isn't for things that happen outside of the school district. It has to be tied to the school district for that. So more information to come. This pamphlet gives you some really good information. It also tells you our advisory board members, some of whom you'll recognize the names of. And then if you're interested in knowing more about how to give to something like this, there's information and contact information around that. So the facility updates. Happy to say that we are adding new playground equipment at Kaganza. We have been installing new playground equipment that has built-in accessibilities for students with disabilities. So you can see this little disc over here, the old kind of merry-go-round, but it is built in such a way that students who are in wheelchairs, which we have students in all of our buildings with that, it's easy for them to get in and get out and experience and be a part of that experience. So at Kaganza, they went through renovation last summer. Playground is this summer. We're adding one actually at River Bluff later this fall. Fox Prairie is the big renovation. Everything was taken out. These three pictures are the exact same classroom. The top classroom was the very last day of school in June. The picture over here on the bottom left is the very same classroom 24 hours later. And this is the classroom Monday. So same classroom, you can see in 8 weeks exactly how much work has been done. So Fox Prairie, much like Kaganza, was completely torn down to its walls. So all the ceiling, all the flooring, all the amenities off the walls, and literally rebuilt from the ground up. So new flooring, new paint, new lights, new air handling, and all of that.
They got a pretty neat new sign there too. Is that an electronic thing?
Yes. And so we are slowly migrating to digital signage so that we can have common signage throughout, and it'll be web-based. So like on days that we have a snow day, we can get the signage across all of our buildings at once. So, yeah, and River Bluff is in the same. It's all the same innards that Fox is having over at River Bluff, and then as we have the availability in our budget, we will start to slowly add more to all of our campuses. The high school, the pool is actually in the process of being filled. It's going to take, I forget what they said, 3 or 4 days to completely fill up, and then it's going to take another 3 to 4 days to start to heat, and then we have to chlorinate and all that. The high school, we completely tore out the flooring and redid the walls. So we've got new tile on the pool deck. We've installed new lighting and new windows up at the top, so it's going to be a lot brighter, a lot more airy. It's going to have that refresh feel. The pool completely acid washed and redone on the inside, so when everyone comes in, which will be sometime in September, it'll look like a brand new facility, even though it's several years old.
When is the pool gonna open again?
We're finalizing the date. It's gonna be in September. It's probably gonna be close to when we have our first swim meet, home swim meet. The administrative building, the biggest addition was this new front for ADA accessibility. So we've added an elevator that goes, if you remember the middle school, it was kind of a split level. So you had an up and a down and then a middle level. When it was converted into the administrative building, they had a lift. But for ADA compliance, we have to have something that can go across all 3 floors. So we had to put in an elevator, so that's the redesign in the front. And then we gave it a fresh coat of paint and carpeting on the inside. So of all the buildings, this had the least amount done with it, but you never know how much fresh coat of paint will liven up the space. And then last but certainly not least is River Bluff. They're cleaning up the campus right now. You can see the new front of River Bluff here. This is the new gym. When you walk into the new gym, you'll see this wall. That wood is reclaimed from the community gym. Those were the old bleachers. We scraped off the gum from the underside. And then we left all of the love that is on the top side, minus the gum, on there. So if you are able to join us on the 19th for the ribbon cutting, not only will you be able to see the new gym, you'll be able to see the wall. You can see the new parking spot. We've separated bus and car drop off and pickup, so they'll be on opposite sides of the building now. And right now they're focusing in on landscaping, prepping for the new playground, and getting ready for registration. So my last slide here is simply inviting all of you to River Bluff on August 19th. The programs can go 5:30 to 7. It is also registration, so it will be busy. But at 6 o'clock, we'll do the actual ribbon cutting ceremony. There'll be a couple of speakers, myself, the principal, the student, and then we'll cut the ribbon and allow people to take photos, look at the new space, and just enjoy one another before the school year starts. So last but certainly not least, and one more, hot off the presses, I have a few of these that I'll put over next to the Educational Foundation flyers. We had a community conversation, the board did last spring, and one of the things that we heard from our community was that people missed having kind of a calendar of events printed. So we created this flyer here, or calendar of events. Doesn't have everything. Things are subject to change, but it has the big things. It has the start of school, end of school, when our breaks are, and when parent-teacher conferences are. So if you're interested, you'll start to see these around town. We will provide these to our chamber members. And then certainly if you'd like one to put on your refrigerator or something, feel free. Questions?
How many projects will not be done before school starts?
0. They will
That's
all
a-
be done.
You better mark that down. That's the first I've ever seen that happen. That's
Now,
great.
That is great. Touch-up paint, I'm not counting that, but yes, we are scheduled. We just did our initial punch list walkthrough at Fox, and so the welcome back week is the week of the 25th, and staff are like, you'll be able to come in. So there will be touch-up paint, but the projects will be done. And no, we did not get to keep the helicopter that we had. A lot of people wanted that.
That's the miracle thing.
Any other questions for Dr. Keyser? All right, thank you very much.
Here's one.
There's one.
Sorry. You had a good article in the paper this last week about the lunch program. And I'm in denial. I didn't realize that we didn't have that all covered with free lunch. But some of us maybe haven't seen that. Can you briefly, I don't want to hold you up forever, but briefly say what's happened?
Sure, not a problem. So the article really highlighted the fact that part of providing lunches, breakfast and lunch to our students and participating in the National School Lunch Program is that there are families that qualify for free or reduced lunch prices based on economic difficulty. But that doesn't cover everyone. There's federal guidelines based on family income that qualify for that. So there's a group of students and families that fall in between, that there is a financial hardship, but not financially hardship enough, that's a bad, to qualify for free lunch. So again, the beauty of our community is that a long time ago, well predating me, there was a fund that was set up that help support the students and the families that fall into that gap in between. And if families have a financial hardship, they can have a conversation with their counselor, the school principal, or they can call the district office, and we will get you connected to the individuals that can help answer those questions. I don't even know who qualifies and who doesn't. It is probably the most confidential information because we're talking about people's economic status, and we want to be very sensitive to that. But we've been fortunate that we've had our past classes donate their unused lunch money. We've had people, we have 2 ladies in our community that annually do a golf outing, and all of their proceeds go to that. And so it ebbs and flows because it's based on need. But when it, knock on wood, we've been able to help support those families that find themselves in that gap to make sure that no one goes hungry for breakfast and or lunch during that. So.
And it's confidential for the students as they go through. That's very important.
Yes, it's absolutely confidential, and to that point, you heard Erica Peckett, our Director of Business Services, say, when the students go through and they type in their 4-digit code, not even the food service people on the computer screen can see. It just says it's accepted and it goes on through. So no one's the wiser. So if the students don't know, the only people are really the parents and then the people that they're connected to in the school district, and everything else is behind the scenes. So
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. That's a great question.
Any other questions? And I would just comment a little bit about the school resource officer.
Absolutely. You know, sometimes I forget which group I've said what to. This summer, right at the end of the school year, the board approved the agreement with the city for the school resource officer program, so we brought that back. We did interviews with 4 candidates. They were all current officers with the Stoughton Area Police Department. Officer Orrin was assigned to that role, and Officer Orrin is transitioning to that role. He is a Stoughton Area Police Officer. His point of contact in our district is our Buildings and Ground Safety Coordinator, Kyle Smith. And we met with principals earlier this month and built out a schedule in which he will have opportunities to be in all of the buildings, participating in a variety of activities. Because his belief, much like the chiefs, much like the mayors and myself, is that this is an extension of the community, and it helps to build bridges across our community and our school district. So being able to talk about internet safety, safety as students get to the point of riding scooters and bikes in the community and stuff like that. So it's not a disciplinarian. Certainly they're a police officer first, and if we have needs such as our Speak Up, Speak Out hotline, and we have tips that come in there, the school resource officer is going to be the first to be assigned that, and they're going to connect with the appropriate building principals to handle those safety situations. But primarily, it is about all of the things that are asset-based, building connections and helping to build our young minds.
All right, and I'd like to just thank Dr. Kieser for his leadership on that issue. This is something that we feel is another important tool for the school district in the city, and to build those relationships between us as well as the students and the staff and the officer that'll be in the buildings. So thank you very much for that. I know, those are difficult conversations sometimes to have, but they're necessary.
Yes, thank you.
All right, any other questions? Go ahead.
Was any work done at Sandy?
Yeah, Sandhill,
Sandhill?
yes. So Sandhill is having some, what we would call behind the walls, so it's not as extensive as what Kaganza and Fox had, but they've had some air handling, they've had some new lighting put in, they had some old worn out flooring that they've had replaced. So yes, but not picture worthy, sorry.
Yeah.
But yes, not every single campus has experienced upgrades or renovations or additions to it.
All right, any other questions? All right, thank you again.
Thank you.
So next up will be Sarah from the chamber, and I couldn't help to put this picture back up. I was, one thing about coming to the coffee with the mayor is sometimes you get a sneak peek. And Sarah didn't know I took this picture, so we're having fun with that this morning. So you're the first ones to see this particular mug, and I'll turn it over to Sarah.
Yeah, I walked in and I'm like, I looked up there and I'm like, how do you know what that mug looks like?
I stepped in her office.
Yeah. So we are moved into the city hall. I think this is our 4th week, which I can't even believe because I'm still very much unpacking. But we are settling in and very grateful to the city for letting us be there. When you walk into the city hall, you will see right away we have our events coordinator. You met Clove that plans all our events, and then our visitor or our tourism coordinator Amanda is also sitting there. And then still on each side is where the city staff sit. And then I have an office right next to the mayor's office that apparently I'm going to have to start locking the door.
Just gonna keep an eye on me for you.
So anyways, yes, so that leads me in. Coffee Break Festival is next Saturday. It is going to be at Racetrack Park again. Last year we had it there for the first year because Mant Park being under construction. It's still, the road is, but Racetrack really was a really good home for it. So I think we'll keep it there. There's a poster up in the senior center about it, but it's goes from 9 until 3 if anybody hasn't been there before. Right at 9 o'clock, I think we have about 7 coffee roasters this year, and you buy either, that's our sipping cup for $10, or we have the really cool collector's cup for $30 that Jason Broadbender from the art teacher from the high school creates. And so we ordered some more this year because literally they sell out in 45 minutes. So those are there, and if you have a collection, I suggest you get there early. And then in addition to always, we have the craft fair set up, and then the car show. So hopefully we'll have great weather because then we'll have lots and lots of cars that will be there. And then they go through and they have a judging. So it just goes into 3 o'clock. It's a very nice, easy, fun festival just to walk around. So that is what's coming up in our world, and it's actually ending up our festival season for the chamber. We have one more in October is Wine Walk, and that's downtown. We have sipping stops throughout the retail places, businesses, and you go in and get your taste of wine. You get to shop around. A lot of them are already decorated for Christmas. So it's really, downtown is magical, I think, on that night. It's really a great time to promote those businesses. So, yeah, so besides moving into, I think the last time I talked to you guys, it was Sutton Mai time, so it was all Sutton Mai, and as soon as Sutton Mai was, it was all moving out of the depot into City Hall. We did, if you didn't catch it, had a moving sale. I found so many treasures there that I had no idea. Every time I turned around or opened a drawer or looked, I'm like, oh my goodness. So yes, 30 years worth of chamber stuff. I think I had every application for the canoe race, for the runs, for all the AI. Anyway, so we got that, but we had a moving sale, and then the Historical Society also had some items too that they were willing to sell and wanting to get rid of. And on the chamber side, we raised $350, and we gave that to them as a donation. So that was, and I can't remember exactly how much that they got too. So a little side front on that. So the Historical Society was able to take some stuff and help me out to the museum, and then they were able to store some things that, for temporary. They were able to sell some things to get out, and if anybody went to the fair, one of the wagons is now in one of the barns, and I didn't see it, but I heard so many good things, how beautifully it was displayed, and that the community could enjoy it. So we wish them the very best, and now you'll be thinking of things you never had to before, and hopefully you'll get some good new things out of that.
And go visit the museum, because there's still things for sale.
Okay, go visit the museum because there's still things for sale, so,
Thank you.
yeah, a lot of cool stuff.
Who designed the cup?
So we put it out there, to the community to put in designs. And then we chose, I don't know exactly who designed that one. Yeah, I'm not 1,000% sure, but we had a handful to check out. So that. It was interesting that you brought up for the kids' lunch. We had somebody come into City Hall first thing this morning. I saw in the paper, I think she wanted to donate, to give back for the lunches for the school. So it took me by surprise. I'm like, what? Wait a second. We had a lot of people there together to figure it out. So that is good. And also, I would highly recommend to go to the ribbon cutting, but if you can't make the ribbon cutting, drive up by the middle school. You are not even gonna be able to get your bearings. It's just like, I don't even get my bearings. There's a parking lot where there wasn't a parking lot, there's no more community, but it kind of looks like it all should look like that. Like, it's hard to remember what it used to look like. So I highly recommend it. It's beautiful. We had a lunch and learn there 2 weeks ago and got a tour of it. And it's a really nice, well done campus. So.
And great partners.
Yeah. Last but not least, because I often speak about this, but I forget about this. Not really forget about this, but I should share it more. In the spring every year you get that little, I call it a phone book. I don't think that's a dirty word to say, of all our chamber members, and they're in by category, and they have their phone number, and they have some ads in there, and it gets mailed out for free to all you guys. But definitely take a look at it, and definitely check in with us if you're looking for something. We have almost 270 members, and they have such unique businesses. I met with one of our newest members today, and he does disposal and hauling. You could call him, and he will take something as small as a mattress to as large as he's demolating a house. That. We have another, the old Firehouse Lounge just opened up. It used to be Fahrenheit Bar across the street from from the Opera House. She came in, I was talking to her, their signature is like, you went there, what is it, 1920s?
Yeah, did you see me in my outfit?
I did on Facebook. So they have signature drinks that you would have there. They have a whole variety, alcoholic and non-alcoholic. We have a new member that does drone footage for if you lose an animal, like for cats or dogs or livestock or deer, because just crazy things that people do businesses and, take that chance. So if you have, it's worth taking a look, just to know that that's here in our community. It's pretty cool. So that is my shtick. Does anybody have any questions? Yeah.
I have just a concern about some of the businesses that are downtown that have steps that are required to get into the building. I can think of 3 just off the top of my head. And for some people, including myself, that's really a barrier for me to go in there. And I know I should call and talk to them. I have talked to one of the business owners. And it's just it seems to me the solution could be as simple as putting in a grab bar or something like that for some of the buildings. But the people that need walkers or wheelchairs, they absolutely can't get in. And I just thought of Wendigo. They have 5 or 6 steps to get in, and I don't know if they have an alternate entrance. But anyway, it's an issue for some people.
It's a huge issue, and it's a huge issue I know that the businesses and restaurants downtown struggle with too. some of their, and I would, if you have those questions, you obviously have to talk to them, because I don't know, but what I've heard, you know, those are historical buildings. There's only so much they can do to it, and then trying to change the front of it, they don't have the actual space to be able to do with, you know, the compliances that you have to, like, for example, put a ramp in. Like, so there's some of them. I can tell you Nordic Nook can't absolutely do anything with that. They have tried, they have looked into it, it's just, they can't change that. So I would, you know, check with it. I know ICS, the Innovation Center that was in the old antique store down the road, we actually purchased a portable lift that can go right up to those steps, because there are so many of them that can lift people up in and out of the door, because there is no other, it's not big enough to put a ramp in the front. There is no back entrance that people can get into easily, and that's just unfortunately on how those buildings are built. So either you have it, or, you know, you have the beautiful old buildings, or you have, you know, and they have to kind of jerry-rig how to get people in. Even at the depot did have a great thing. I mean, we had a ramp alongside, you know, that we could, but it wasn't like it was open to the public. We would have to move some things, and, you know, so a lot of the accessibility and how they used to build things is just unfortunately difficult.
Yeah, and if you have specific ones, you can give me a list and I can check with the planning department to see if it is feasible, because sometimes the building owner owns some of the area out toward the sidewalk, and sometimes that's a public area, and they would be able to look and see whether or not it's feasible. We do have funds available through revolving loan fund program that we have for downtown business owners. They can borrow money at a reduced interest rate, so if they want to put them in and it's feasible, we can maybe at least help them with the financing in order to get that done. I know the Fosdales did theirs a few years ago now. Edward Jones recently did theirs. So we're starting to see more of that, and we're having good conversations with the Landmarks Commission. To Sarah's point, they're historic buildings. We have to make sure that everybody's on board with it, but they've been pretty receptive to the addition of the ramps that we have done.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Sarah? All right, thank you. All right, so I think this is your debut, isn't it?
It is.
It is. Making his debut from Stoughton Health is Chris. You can introduce yourself and
Sure.
let us know what's going on at Stoughton Health. And I was hoping to participate in the golf outing, but now I have to go to a conference.
Oh, no.
Because I'm temporarily filling in at utilities as well, because I didn't have enough to do. So I'll be in Green Bay that day, but I know you have an event coming up for that you can maybe talk about, and anything else that's going on at Stoughton Health.
Sure. Well, it's a demonstration. We're lifelong learners. So, well, thank you all for being here. My name is Chris Brabant. I am privileged to serve as president and CEO of Stoughton Health Association. So the hospital and the urgent care and the associated urgent cares in Cottage Grove and in McFarland and in Oregon. And so first of all, it's great to be here. I could spend an hour talking about everything going on, but I'll condense it to about 10 minutes and then answer any questions. So, and I'll just concentrate on main campus, even though we have improvements at all of the different, at all of the urgent cares and everything else. So as you know, we've opened a very large outpatient center a couple of months ago, and the purpose of that was to consolidate all of the services that we had scattered about and in different buildings, and so that folks just had mainly one place to go to, depending on where you live in the service area. And so far, overall, it's gone quite well. A couple of issues that some of you unfortunately may have experienced. Number one, it's confusing. We have essentially one address for three different buildings. You have the hospital, you have the SSM clinic, and then you have the outpatient center, right? And so, and for folks that aren't familiar with the campus, sometimes they would show up at the hospital when they had a clinic visit, or physical therapy, or cardiac rehab, or pulmonary rehab, which is all in that new building. Again, the reason for building that building is to bring all those services together. Or if you had an appointment in the hospital, say to get some labs drawn, or to have an image in X-ray, like a CT scan or an MRI, and folks would show up at the wrong place. Or if you had a visit with an SSM provider, but then you showed up at one of the other doors, okay? It's kind of unanticipated consequences of that. And so what we're doing is we're trying to simplify that. So the main entrance to the hospital will be Stoughton Hospital North. The main entrance to the outpatient center will be Outpatient Center South. And then for the SSM clinic, it will be the SSM clinic accessed through Stoughton Health North. Now there will be signage in big letters that folks like me, whose eyes are getting bad, can see more clearly. And so hopefully that will help reduce the confusion. The other piece of that outpatient center that has caused a significant amount of controversy, both within the organization and out in the community at large, is the tunnel, or what I like to call tunnel gate. And that's a connection tunnel that exists between the hospital and the outpatient center. Some of you may have heard about that or even experienced what some people have is frustration with that. And so back in the day when cardiac rehabilitation was located within the hospital, folks who had cardiac rehab could go from the hospital where the rehab room was down the elevator to the cafeteria and have lunch, which, by the way, we really appreciate you frequenting the lunch area. The Chef Dan tries to do a really nice job, and most of the time he does. It's delicious. Now with all of cardiac rehab in the new building, people have been asked to walk outside to get to Chef Dan's kitchen versus walking through the tunnel, which more and more people are learning is actually there. So a very quick backstory, the tunnel was originally designed kind of like Disney, in the way a lot of hospitals are. You have on stage and off stage. All the behind the scenes stuff happens off stage. It's only accessible to employees and inaccessible to the public, okay? And the reason for that is to move equipment safely, so as, you don't want to be moving a large, say, operating room table and then run somebody over with it, right? I mean, that would be bad. That would be a bad thing. And so a little extreme, but things like that is to keep the public safe, okay? What we didn't realize is how much the public wants to use that and how much sense. So there's pros and cons to having it open. It would be difficult for somebody who comes there for physical therapy or occupational therapy or for an appointment, and we say to them, well, thank you for coming to your appointment. If you want lunch, you have to walk out into the snowstorm and go have lunch, right? And so we're doing what's called settle and see. We're going to kind of get used to our new house, have the public get used to the new house, and then decide what to do with that tunnel. And the reason being is hospitals have to follow certain codes. There have to be code buttons in case there's an emergency. Every space, every distance apart, they have to have telephones. There has to be motion sensor cameras, sensing cameras. So, and it's for public safety, really. So if somebody trips and falls or isn't feeling well, not only can we see that, they can push a button and get help right away. That tunnel has none of that because it was made for hospital personnel. So that's why when somebody says, I'm sorry, sir, we cannot walk you through the tunnel, you'll have to go around, that's the reason why. Again, folks still might not like that, but sometimes when you know the reason why, that may be helpful. For others, it may not be, but that's the whole reason for that. So if you've ever heard anybody talk about that, that's the whole idea around that part and parcel. So, and then the only other thing I'll talk about, next time I promise I'll bring some pictures, because the visual, at least for me, is often a lot easier than just talking about it in the abstract. The other thing that we're working on is bringing a lot of new services to town that we've either been talking about or enhancing the services that are already here. So for instance, cardiology. We brought in a cardiology group. As most of us age, the #1 leading cause of morbidity, or if you will, illness and of death, is cardiovascular disease, right? Heart disease. And so we brought in, Dr. Kaji did a great job, but his practice was very limited here. It was only 2 days a month and a very limited number of patients. So what we've done now is that we brought a cardiology group in of a number of different cardiologists who can provide 24/7 coverage of the hospital. So if you or somebody you know comes into the emergency department with a cardiac issue, if the emergency department doctor needs a cardiologist to consult with to say, hey, I have this patient with XYZ, I'm going to do these treatments, I'm going to admit the patient, give them medicine and send them home, or send them to a higher institution of care. What do you think of this plan? So it's another tool added so that patients can stay in the community and receive the same level of care that you would get at UW or at SSM St. Mary's or Meriter or whatever hospital is in the area. We can now do that. And same with the med-surg department. If we have a patient who, say, has congestive heart failure, and they might have had a couple too many hot dogs, and now they're 10 pounds up and feeling terrible, okay, we can admit them, take care of them just like you would at one of the other tertiary care hospitals, one of the large urban centers, if you will, but right here in the community. So you or your family don't have to travel all the way downtown, hit the Beltline. I know some folks don't like it. Now, I grew up in the Milwaukee area. Well, I grew up in Green Bay, but I lived in Milwaukee 20 years, so that's traffic. Everyone grouses about the Beltline. Quite honestly, it's not any worse than what I've seen elsewhere, but for folks that aren't used to it, it's challenging to navigate. I absolutely get that. So trying to keep that care close to home. We're bringing spine and pain management services here starting October 1st. That's the goal. And so we're bringing a gentleman in, a physiatrist, who can specifically treat pain and spinal, not only injuries, but just the chronic pain that many of us have as we get older. So the goal is to start October 1st. It's ambitious because we haven't even signed the contract yet. So I'm kind of giving you a little inside scoop on that, but we're very close to that. Again, bringing that service close to home so you don't have to travel into town to get that. Into the big Madison town, I should say. You can get it right here. He's very excited to come here. He's got family here. He currently practices in Appleton, but his bride doesn't want to move to the Fox Valley. So he's motivated to come here and provide that service. And a lot of people from our service area, from the community, already commute up to Appleton for his services. So bringing that close to home. And then finally, one other thing that we're working on, and then I'll open it up to questions, or please feel free to interrupt me. We're bringing in a group called Senior Life Solutions. And what they are is they're a group of counselors who are monitored and also who can call for assistance if need be. They're monitored by a psychiatrist who will provide behavioral health or mental health services for folks that are 65 and older. So having that service right here, quick, easy access versus having to wait for weeks or even months in town, so that we can bring that service here. As we all get older, a lot of life happens. Lots of things happen that sometimes it's just good to talk to somebody. Talk to what I call a dispassionate. What I mean by that is not that they don't care, but they're just somebody who can objectively listen to what's happening and offer solutions for you to help yourself. And so that's coming not only for individual services, but for group therapy services as well. So sometimes it's just good to get together with a group of folks and talk about common interests, common things that might be on our minds or that are affecting us. And so bringing that service to town too, and that starts December 1st, and that contract's already signed. So we're moving forward with that as well. We just hired a new orthopedic surgeon. So he starts September 15th. Dr. Ravel, the current orthopedic surgeon, has just implemented a new piece of technology called the Mako robot. So right here in your community, we now do robotic surgery. And what that does is it, for lack of better terminology, it allows a machine to precisely map with imaging, or with a CT scan they call it, so they can see the inside of what's going on in your knee or your hip, matches the robot directly. So there are very precise cuts for surgical and very precise repairs. And what it does is it decreases the amount of recovery time, makes for an even more precise operation. So as we serve the community and all of your healthcare needs, one of the things that we are responsible for is to maintain a state-of-the-art facility and a state-of-the-art equipment so that we can best care for you the very same way that they do at a large urban community center or even an academic medical center like UW. Because I don't know how many of you know this, we are beholden to provide the same level of quality healthcare service as any other hospital in the country. And in fact, we're benchmarked and we're monitored, just like every other hospital, to make sure that that level of quality stays way up here. Do we get it right every single time? No. That's why we like to hear when people don't have a good experience, just as much as we like to hear when we do. Everyone likes a pat on the back, right? But we also like to know when we could have done better or should have done better by somebody. I'm always available, so please, always feel free to reach out. Just call up and say, hey, I need to talk to that Chris guy. He said I can call. I'd be very happy to hear you, honestly. And I have spoken with folks before, so that's it in a nutshell of the current things going on. We're working on so much more, but lots and lots happening in the healthcare world. A whole one big, beautiful fit bill thing going on in Washington, D.C. could certainly have an effect on our finances. We don't make a lot of money. We're not trying to make money. Contrary to popular belief, hospitals tend to be broke, and we have just enough margin to keep the lights on and pay for quality folks, and make a couple of improvements. And other than that, we have to do what everybody else does, raise money through the foundation and everything else. So one of the great things about here, and I'll wind up with this, is the great community support that Stoughton Health gets. Amazing, amazing, amazing. You don't see that everywhere. So pretty fantastic of all of you and folks that you know and everybody in the community that supports the hospital. We try to give back as well the very best we can. So with that, does anybody have any questions? I believe I've yammered on long enough. But happy to answer any questions you might have or anything. Yes, ma'am.
I'm interested in the new, or the expansion of cardiology.
Yeah.
You said there'll be a group serving the hospital. Will they be like on site? And is it 24/7 or just 9 to 5?
That's a great question. So they will be on site for just starting twice a month, but they're going to see a lot more patients. They'll see up to 20 patients in a day, 2 days per month, and they're specifically scheduled. And as soon as we start to get as soon as the time to next appointment starts to get out a little farther, like within 2 weeks, we'll add another day. So they will be physically here to see patients at the outpatient center, but we can always call them if the hospitalist or an emergency department doctor wants to have a conversation about a patient and to decide the best treatment pathway for that patient. So great question. I didn't tell the whole story. So, and they'll be here and they'll be ordering all manner of testing that we do now, and we'll be able to do everything for cardiology patients except the procedure. So we're not going to be able to do heart caths or heart surgery or any of that stuff, but anything non-invasive like an echo or a picture of your heart, things like that, we can do here. So great question. Thank you. Sorry I didn't tell the whole story. Anything else? Yes, sir.
In regards to the locations you have to go for your appointment, I'm not aware that we were told at the time the appointment was made where we go.
Yes.
Or when you're reminded. I think maybe you can emphasize that?
That is a great point. We've talked about that very thing. And yes, making sure that our registrar folks and the folks that are making the appointment for you and with you remind you and tell you, go to the north hospital entrance, go to the south outpatient entrance. Very, very good. I wish I could say we get it 100% of the time, but sometimes we don't. And I fully recognize that, but thank you for that. And the signage should be up soon. So hopefully that'll make it a little less confusing. But yeah, especially for somebody who hasn't been there yet, I can certainly see how it would be. So thank you for that.
Any other questions? All right, nice job on your debut.
Thank you, sir. So appreciate your time. Thank you. This is great.
Great to be here. And if you got it all, we understand.
I'll kind of loiter in the back if there are any
Okay.
questions for a little bit.
All right, I'll whip through this as quick as I can. So they try to give updates on the road construction. So right now on the east side, you probably noticed, especially at Stoughton Hospital and out in that area, there's been a fair amount of disruption. I've been told that phase 2, which we're in right now, we're going to transition to phase 3 sometime around September 15th, weather permitting. And I know Sarah has been very helpful to help communicate the changes in the maps that she's been working with Public Works. And then we have weekly meetings led by Public Works with Stoughton Health, Scotland, and some of the other businesses that are affected by the traffic flow down there. And we've really tried as much as we can to go above and beyond what many communities do for local detours, and I know Sarah's been a big part of that, so we appreciate that collaboration. So phase 3 looks like they're going to try to get that done before the snow falls. We'll see how that goes. It's going to affect the Opera House as well. So we're having conversations about how we can accommodate parking, and then the artists that come in on their tour buses and where we're going to park them and things like that. I know the fire department, what they're going to be doing is they're going to be exiting behind the building on Jefferson Street instead of Main Street during that. So we're already having those types of conversations. And you can see that, you know, we have a couple detours. We have the local detour, and then we have, you know, trucks. We try to get them to stay off the township roads if they would, and then work their way through town and try to stay off Main Street as much as they can, especially where this construction area is. But for the most part, they're on pace. They were a couple weeks behind, but I think they're starting to get caught up. Do you have a question?
Yes, when phase 3 is active, how will we, if we were going from the west side to the east side of town, how are we gonna get around Main Street?
I don't have the exact route, but it will route kind of like how they're routing people around now. You know, you'll have to go in the back neighborhoods. They are, and I don't know if you were gonna say this, on September 8th, they are going to have a public meeting here to answer all those questions. And they are going to, another thing, the brick wall, you know, right by the street.
Yeah.
They're redoing that. That's gonna start before the road stuff does. So don't worry, they're not gonna close down the road, but they did give us a heads up at our last meeting that they are gonna be starting that.
And
So-
Highway N is open, so if nothing else, you can come around that way and come from the back. So there'll be a couple different options. And then where's the best place to get the updated maps? Is it on your website or?
Well, what we've been doing is working with the city and coming up with, so on our website, we do have, I think it's under business, I can't think of what it is, and then we have a construction update, but it's on the city. We give it to all our chamber businesses to show as well, but why they're doing what they're doing, and how long it's gonna be, and then we have the routes on there. And so we work with it, so we all have the same message, because, you know, if you don't, one person says, well, I think, you know, they're not letting us, and yeah, I think you should go this way, and it just gets really confusing, then you don't know which way. And even I'm like, I'm gonna try the quick trip on the east side, how am I gonna get there? It takes, you know, you gotta go slow. I gotta ask some people. But,
Good.
yeah.
So, yeah, look for the maps on the chamber website. There's some of the maps that I pull over coming off the Public Works website, so they update them at least weekly. Other things we have going on, of course, Stoughton Trailers, their headquarters is just about completed. They are gonna have a public event on September 20th, I believe it is. So anybody from the public can come in there and tour their new facility. And they've been doing some of the prep work in the yellow areas, which would be single-family homes. And then, as I mentioned in the past, we're working with the Continental Group with the Authentics apartments, so they're making their way to get their site plan approved. They've had their conditional use approved, so it allows them to have the number of buildings that they have laid out. This is what the headquarters is looking like now, so you can see it's just about done on the outside. Even the landscaping for the most part has been done. Parking lot, lighting is done. Those are usually some of the final details. This is the Authentics kind of layout. I think I showed you this last month, and you can see there's 312 units in 12 buildings. And so it's fairly high density, but this will be kind of a neighborhood within its own. As I mentioned, the trail that goes, basically starts near Virgin Lake Park. That'll go all the way through 51 West. We'll go through the development and come out somewhere behind the apartments between the school district and the church. So, nice trail system. If you live in these apartments and you go to Sand Hill School, you'll be able to walk there really easily. And this is kind of an overhead view. You can kind of see the school there on the right. And I'm not sure exactly where the trail's gonna cut in, but I know it's in the works. Greenspire, so somebody said I should talk about Greenspire. So a number of things going on there. In the last year, they've remodeled all 92 units in all the buildings. There was a $1 million WEDA tax credit deal. So we have a local housing authority, which is a spin-off of the city, basically, similar to the redevelopment authority. And basically, the housing authority sold the property for $1 to a tax credit group. They submit the application for WEDA to get the tax credits. They were awarded $1 million in tax credits. They sell the tax credits for 80 cents on the dollar to investors. Everybody makes their money, all the units get renovated, and in 30 years, the housing authority has a first right of refusal to purchase the property back if they want to continue to operate it. And then there was a second portion of that. So when we were having conversations with the two applicants that worked together on the WEDA tax credit grant, I said, oh, it sure would be nice if we could do some sustainability measures like solar. And one of the gentlemen, Paul from Sunnyside, said, well, now that you mentioned that, I can talk about it, but I couldn't say anything because it would be considered a conflict. But since you brought it up, we can apply for money. And they did. And they were awarded $5.8 million through the Inflation Reduction Act to put solar on all the buildings. This picture here shows a carport. Those are solar panels on there, and there's several carports throughout the site there that's generating solar, so it'll be interesting to see exactly how much they can generate. They're also talking about things like EV charging stations, and then each individual apartment unit used to be heated with electric wall heaters. They were all replaced by heat pumps, which are way more energy efficient. So the residents that live there who are on fixed incomes, and typically seniors, their utility bills will be reduced substantially. So that's a big win for the people that work there, plus all the units are remodeled. They're also doing what they call permaculture, and I'm not really an expert on this, but what it really does is it tries to capture the rainwater and reuse it in like rain gardens and things like that, so it doesn't just go into the stormwater. So this is a picture that was under construction about a week ago, and they're trying to finish that up now. So there's other pictures on site which I didn't include, but you can see there's been a tremendous investment in this, and these buildings were built in the 1970s and the 1980s, and you know, they were in desperate need of renovation, and this is really the most cost-effective way of doing it. And we do have a shortage of senior housing, so being able to invest in the ones we have is really important. It's just another picture. This is kind of the main office entry area here. You can see the solar array on those buildings as well. And if you're bored someday, just drive through there. You'll be amazed at what you see. And I mean, when you're there, it's a lot more impressive than just looking at a bunch of pictures. This is a redevelopment area along the river, so we were working with the Alexander Group. They're looking to do about 120 units in phase 1 and pretty similar to the same amount in phase 2. So this is what we would call a certified survey map. So what we do is right now there's a bunch of different lots down there from all the buildings that were there in the past. And we're trying to get that down to 2 or 3 lots. I think initially we're going to go to 2 lots, basically one for the first phase, and then the second lot would be for the second phase, and then the area that we would call public improvements, which would be the road that we're going to put in, the stormwater pond, and potential parkland area. And then eventually, when that's built out, then we'll probably separate that second lot into the third lot for the phase 2 buildings. And this is kind of the layout of the building. We're focusing mostly on phase 1, these 2 buildings here, and then phase 2 could look like that later. That'll probably be a couple years away. We're hoping they get started in the spring, and we're hoping that by September they will have their site plan completed. We've been having many conversations with them about making sure that they can meet our setback requirements and some of the features that are in there. Director Chris Pritchard and I and our county board supervisor Engelberger did a tour in Madison Cottage Grove area yesterday about a development on 200-some acres, and it really gave us some good ideas on some of the features that we've been talking about. It kind of reinforces quite a bit of what we've been saying and some new ideas, and gives us a really great idea of how much really thought and vision goes into these developments. The one we toured yesterday was like 27 years in the making, and the guy that was doing the tour had been there from day one, and it was just like amazing way back then how they envisioned things to be as far as the roads. There's a viewpoint of the Capitol. There's the way they integrated the neighborhoods and multiple different types of housing options, whether it's multifamily or single-family homes or alley lots. Some of the same things we're doing out behind Walmart right now, they thought about this like 27 years ago, so it's quite enlightening for us. So we try to go on these tours through the county, 2 or 3 times a year, you know, because we want to continue to learn and get better at what we're doing. This is what it would look like from overhead. You can kind of see the trail system that we would integrate in there, and the stormwater pond. And then this is kind of a rendition of what the buildings might look like. And you can see they are trying to stay with the Scandinavian look with the design of the roof lines, kind of staggering them, color schemes, things like that. So a lot of things we were looking at in Madison yesterday were really the access from the porches to the path, the way the balconies, you know, face the river, things like that. Just trying to make sure that, you know, the people that live there can have the, you know, the best view of the kind of the river and what's going on at Van Park. There's another kind of a side view. And then the other conversation we've been having is with the Stoughton Utilities building. So we're having conversations with the Sahara Bay Distillery, and this is kind of a rendition. They did a presentation at the last city council meeting. This is probably a couple, 3 years away. They have Stoughton ties. They really want to be on the Sahara River because the name of their business is the Sahara Bay Distillery. And we think the utilities building would offer a great opportunity for them. So we're in a process now, we're actually interviewing 3 firms next week to determine what a future Stoughton utility building would look like and where it might be located so we can begin that process. And then we've been working on the comprehensive plan. I know I mentioned that last month. Has everyone filled out the survey? Anybody? I see a couple. Great. So the comprehensive plan we have to do every 10 years by state law, and we really want community feedback so we can understand what the vision of the community is going forward, because as public officials, we think we know a few things, but sometimes we don't know as much as we think we do, and we need to rely on the public to help educate us and understand what the community values and what the community vision and priorities should be. So the comprehensive plan is the way to do that. There's going to be some more engagement sessions. There's going to be a coffee break. So if you're at coffee break, or if there's people that you go there with that haven't taken the survey, we encourage them to do that. And then also they're going to have an event at Gazebo Music, and I imagine they may do some other pop-up events as well. And that's all I had. Any questions? Yes.
Have all of the contaminant issues been resolved, that you can go ahead with this plan that you were showing?
Yeah, so on the river, we have a few issues. If I pull the picture back up. So what we've learned is in the past, our public works facility was up here. And before that was there was a coal gasification plant. And what's happened is there's some contamination in the soil here. And we have previously worked with our consultants in the DNR to do what they call a material maintenance plan. And that was based on a previous developer that didn't come to fruition. So we're in the process of having a consultant amend that plan for a different footprint for the buildings. So that's the first thing that's going on. So we have to update that plan before they dig, but we probably wouldn't be able to start construction until sometime next year anyway, once we get through all the approvals. And basically what the plan does is it outlines what happens when you come into an area where the soil is hot, where it's contaminated. We've already tested it, so we kind of know where those areas are. Some of the soil can be reused on different areas. For example, where the parking lot may be. Some of the other contaminants that are higher levels would be hauled to a specific landfill. And obviously there's costs associated with that. But the other thing that happened is that contamination leached down into the river. So we had done some testing in the river, and the last meeting we had with the DNR, they said that some of the sampling was further downstream than we anticipated. So we're working on a separate material maintenance plan to how to address the material in the river. And we do have a follow-up meeting with the DNR next week. And we're hoping that at that meeting we'll learn more of where they are in that process. All those soil samples were taken, they've all been processed. I'm hoping that the material maintenance plan is completed and that the DNR is comfortable with what we have to do, because they basically are gonna have to dredge the river. And the question would be is how they can get the water level down, so when they dredge it, any of the contaminants that are in the sediment doesn't get washed down toward Dunkirk. So they're trying to figure out the plan on how to address that, and then what to do with that sediment. Can that sediment be reused on the other side, you know, for the parking lot, for example? Or does that need to go to a specific landfill as well? Once we get through that, then we can have the permits that the DNR is working on for the downstream features. We can have a public hearing and we can talk about that. And those permits included things like the features we want to add, as well as this underpass. Now, this has been approved, but it's approved conditionally on approving these other permits that we're working with the DNR on.
It looks like the river is way farther from that house, that pink-topped building,
Yeah,
than
all
it is now. They're gonna reroute that?
Well, so the plan is when we do the trail, right now, we have the head race here, which is between Stoughton Utilities and the
Yeah.
dam, and then the tail race is here. And the plan would be is we would fill those in, because they don't provide any value and the water is just stagnant in there. Last year, we had all the dead fish in there and it was just smelly and ugly.
Huh.
So that's part of the permitting process, is we need to get the DNR, you know, approval in order to fill that in. And so we want to fill it in, put the trail in, but also to help stabilize the historic building here, because it's starting to erode here on the side of the building. And what we learned through the process pretty recently, when we're talking about the Yahara Bay Distillery, is that the DNR considers this powerhouse as part of the dam because the water goes underneath it. So that's why we can't really sell that building right now until we get this all filled in, get the permits, and then we'll begin to market the building. We've had some interest in the building. At one point, Yahara Bay was talking about it, but it needs probably almost $800,000 worth of work just to stabilize it, which would be a new roof and the tuck pointing on the side of the building. It needs new windows. So just to do the exterior and save the building, you know, by the time we get to it, it's probably gonna be pushing $1 million. It's kind of our version of the 1892 building. It's like, what do you do with it? You know, it's a landmark. We can't just tear it down, even if we wanted to. Do we use taxpayers' money and invest in the building? Ideally, we would sell the building, and then somebody, as a private investor, could get historical tax credits for the renovation. So they could renovate the building and get a tax credit on the back end instead of using taxpayers' money to renovate the building. So those are the conversations we're having. Similar to the depot, one of the reasons that we were interested in selling the depot when we were approached is not only what Schmetz want to do with the building, they want to have, you know, an extension of the arts district and have gallery and spaces for people to do projects. But that building also needed an enormous investment. So they have 2 contracts right now for the depot building with builders. They're going to do a $250,000 renovation on the outside of the building, another $250,000 renovation on the inside of the building. And I was just struggling, as the mayor, about investing tax dollars in a building that we really weren't using. So when the opportunity came up for them to purchase the building, that was one of the things I had to take into consideration, is even though it was great having the chamber there and the historical society, that building was really expensive to maintain. And, is it fair for the taxpayers to invest money in a building that we weren't using for city services? So those are difficult things to manage, but we also think those are opportunities to hopefully make the community better, even though it creates hardships for those folks that were there. But, eventually we'll all land on our feet and we'll move forward, and that's what we're trying to do. But this building is kind of a similar story. What do we do with it? We don't have a use for the city. And, and if somebody wants to use that for commercial space, maybe a restaurant or a bar or a coffee shop or ice cream or whatever, that would be wonderful. But it's not a huge building either. So it's like, how much money do we stick into a building that may or may not be big enough to earn that money back? So those are difficult things to manage, but the main thing we want to do right now is get things approved, get the building stabilized, and then, begin to market the property.
So a question about those apartments. I know with your previous people that you're working with, they were considered going to be high-end apartments. Are they still going to be considered that?
Yeah, so when we had Brink looking at it, they were going to be high-end market rate, they call it. And the rent, I'm going to say, would have been at least $2,000 a month. With Alexander, what they're proposing is it would be a mix of market rate and Section 42 housing. So one of the things they would be doing is applying for a 4% WIDA tax credit deal. They would be doing that here in the fall. So some of the approvals that we're making now is setting the table for them to be able to apply and qualify to receive those tax credits. So within the buildings, you'll have market rate and you'll have subsidized housing. But when you look at Section 42, you'll have teachers, police officers, other folks that live in our community that would qualify for those apartments. So sometimes there's kind of a misnomer, subsidized housing, what does that look like? Well, it looks like everyday people, especially right now when the cost of everything is going up. So it would be a great housing opportunity for potentially employees, Stoughton Health, and anybody else that's working in our community can live here. And so it is different. The challenge with that for us is this is a tax incremental finance district. We've accrued over $2 million worth of debt here, and that's before we pay for the contamination, which who knows, that could be another $2 million. We could have $4 million invested in this site. That's from purchasing buildings, demoing buildings, doing soil testing, putting in roads, putting in the stormwater. $4 million worth of debt we're going to start with. And the way the tax incremental financing works is when the new buildings go up, the property taxes from all the taxing jurisdictions, the city, the county, the school district, Madison College, the property taxes pay back all that debt that was incurred. With a market rate, the way it works is the property taxes are based on the rental income, not the value of what the building is. It's the value or the revenue that has come in from the rent. So on a market value, the rent is higher. It's easier to pay back the debt. On a subsidized, the rent is lower, so you don't have as much money to pay back the debt. for the developer, it's more cost effective for them to get the subsidy because it's 4% they're saving, so that can help them balance their numbers. So what we're trying to do is thread the needle on trying to make sure we have enough revenue to cover our debt versus they have enough revenue and tax credits for them to want to move forward with the project. And the issue that Brink had is he wanted to charge, say, $2,000 a month to rent it. Well, the banks couldn't find any other properties in Stoughton where we were getting that much rent, so they didn't want to give him the loan because we couldn't get any comparables. So it's a lot of real estate, finance, these things are really complicated. But we feel pretty confident that Alexander is going to deliver on it. They're really excited about the project. We had a meeting with them yesterday again in the morning to work on the building design and try to position them to get their site plan approved in September by the Plan Commission. So these projects, yeah, I lose a lot of sleep over this stuff because this is so important to get this community, you know, get these projects done, provide housing opportunities. We have a huge shortage in Dane County. Get rid of the contamination that accumulated over the years, and you know, try to make use of the best asset we have in our city, a natural asset, and that's our river, which has been underutilized for years. So these are like once in a lifetime projects, and the city's been working on this site for, I don't know, 15, 20 years now. So we feel like there's a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel, and we're hoping maybe next year sometime we can see something coming out of the ground here and start paying that debt back. What we're doing now financially to keep it off the tax roll, we're actually using extra tax, property tax increment from the Walmart area to pay off the debt we've incurred in this area, so we don't have to raise your taxes in order to pay for this thing until we get it built. So there's a whole lot of shell game going on financially in the finance department to make sure that we minimize the impact on taxpayers until this thing comes to fruition. I know that's a lot. Hopefully you can follow me on that. Nothing is easy. Huh?
Very much appreciated. That is such a underutilized, ugly part of town. It's just, blech. And that is beautiful.
Yeah.
And to know all the work you have to do to just to even get it started, I'm just really happy the city's taking the time and the energy to look into it, and not even look into it, but to actually follow through these very painstaking steps, it seems like.
And if you think about it, you know, this project was started when Helen Johnson was mayor. I mean, so when Helen, and then it was Jim, and then Donna, so on the fourth mayor. I'm hoping not to leave it to the fifth one. That's my goal here, is I want to see this project go through. The other exciting thing that's happening for projects is, so the old Virtual Foundry building, which is across from Ben's, which used to be Cully's on Water Street, that project is almost finished. We have a couple of young developers that have been, they flipped that commercial building into 17 residential units. So that one is almost done, and they recently closed on the property where the dentist office is downtown, and their plan is to renovate the second and third floor there and put in some more apartments there as well. They've been sitting empty for, I don't know, when I went up there was bathtubs in there from the 1950s, and you could see where at one point there was a fire up there, and I mean, if they can pull that off, that'll be amazing, which will give us some more downtown housing opportunities that we're in desperate need of. And we've created this downtown TIF district in order to help support projects like that. Question?
Yeah, at one point you told us that the dentist office was thinking about buying the story-in building next door and kicking down the wall and expanding. Are they still gonna do that?
Yeah, so the dentist office owned the entire complex, which included that building. And they were gonna renovate it themselves, and then they decided that that was gonna be a huge undertaking because it's a historic building, it needs a lot of work, and in fact, at one point, they were actually talking about purchasing PVGs, and then, for whatever reason, that fell through. But in the meantime, we had introduced them to Justin and Dustin, who were doing the Water Street project, and they've been communicating all along, and then they decided, well, we'll just buy the building, rent back to you, and we'll fix it up. So that's kind of what's going on there. So there's a lot of conversations and collaborations. We try to get developers to work together instead of against each other and do things for the greater good. And there's plenty of work for everybody, so we're hoping that that project will happen. It's very early. They just closed on the property in the last week. But they've done a project involving historical tax credits already on Water Street, so they kind of know the routine now. We have the downtown TIF district created, so they know that that building will add value. That property tax in that building will go up by finishing it off. So we think that financially, we're hoping that the numbers will work out. There's also some state revolving loan funds that I lobbied for, that they changed and made it easier for our projects to get done, because initially, 2 years ago, when they passed it in the budget, you couldn't use those revolving loan dollars that have low interest rates for historical preservation or in TIF districts. So they've changed that now, 2 years later, because nobody was using it, like I told them what would happen. And so we're working really hard to do what we can to keep our downtown thriving and make, you know, all these buildings reach their potential.
Great, thank you.
So that building you're talking about where the dentist is, the old hotel?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
that's what we thought.
Yeah.
So a lot of people would.
Yeah, it's an old hotel. I think they're gonna try to get maybe a dozen, give or take, a couple units out of that. You know, we'll have to work through some parking issues because there's no on-site parking, similar to their other building where we negotiated with them and worked with the neighbors to create a parking situation. So there's places for people that live in their apartments, other apartments, and people that are working and visiting our downtown businesses. So we have enough parking for everybody. The other thing we're doing for parking right now is we have 2 grants that look like they're advancing with Dane County. They add EV charging stations, and one of them is in the parking lot behind the hotel we're talking about, between Water and Division Street. And then the other one would be at Man Park. So there's grants out there where basically the county has some money from the federal government that they can use to provide EV charging stations. So we've already done an on-site at the parking lot, I call it the south parking lot, and then we're having one next week at Man Park on where exactly we need to place them to make sure that we have all the power that's required in order to set them up. And we know that having the EV charging stations are not only good for the environment, but people go on their apps on their phones and it'll tell them where they are, and they'll come to those communities and shop while the car is charging.
Yeah.
So we think that'll be great if we can secure those 2. It's possible that they're gonna reopen it. They only had, I think they had 57 available units, like 4 to 6 per project. So they had 57 projects, and I think they only had like 51 qualifying applicants, and 2 of them were ours. So we may apply for another one if they reopen it. But you know, for us, we'll get the equipment for free, and then basically the city has to absorb the costs of the electricity that's used to, you know, power the charging stations for the people that use them. But we think it's a good way to support our downtown businesses. Yes.
I have a question about the Stoughton trailer development area.
Sure.
I don't know if people are finished, you know, asking about downtown and such.
Which part, the Stoughton
Well,
trailers or
if
the
you could go to
apartments?
the overview,
This one?
no, of the whole property, like the aerial,
Yeah.
yeah, the one with the big red things.
Okay.
Could you just point out what's what there color-wise and?
Yeah, so this is the headquarters here.
Yeah.
And then these there are the apartments that I showed here. This area here in the yellow, those would be single-family homes. So these are existing roads that are being extended. So it's like Kingsland and Creedaman are being extended in, and I forget what this one is now, I should know that. I used to know that when I delivered pizzas all the time, but now I forget. So these are all single-family homes. This would be an opportunity for either single single-family homes or duplexes or small apartment complex. And then these purple areas are kind of, could be any of the above. The red area is anticipated to be commercial. And these, can be divided up. They just have, some big lots for now. And then this area here would be the park space, so we're anticipating probably the equivalent of 4 like soccer fields there. That can be used for not only soccer, but for lacrosse, ultimate frisbee, flag football, whatever. And then this area up here would be duplexes. And then a couple of things they're working on right now with Dane County. If you've been out there, this area here is under construction. There'd be a road connection here. So the road that comes in off of 51, next summer there'll be a roundabout put here. This is Rutland done, this is Greenspire, and the roundabout will go here. And then the road will connect up here to Highway B, and then eventually it may connect right here at Country Club. Dane County's telling them if they make this connection, based on the current traffic studies, they'd have to put a roundabout there. So for now, they put that on hold. We're gonna focus on that, and then probably redo the traffic counts once they start selling some more properties. So there's a lot going on there right now. We're trying to get this answer here from the county on when that can be connected, because we'd like to get that connected before they do this roundabout. Otherwise, it's gonna be really challenging to get, this is all gonna be tore up next summer. It's gonna be challenging. I mean, you can go through on these roads, but I really don't want the big dump trucks bringing dirt and fill in to be driving down here, and I'm sure Stone trailers don't want them bouncing past their new headquarters. So we're hoping to get this connection done. The city has given our blessing to make the connection, but so trailers have to work out the details with Dane County because it's their road. So yeah, there's a lot going on there. More complication. The good news is there's no contamination there.
Yeah.
Are they planning to do the Rutland roundabout at the same time they do the B-51?
Yep.
Oh.
Yep, they'd be doing them both at the same time, so that whole stretch is gonna be a mess next summer.
Yeah, but
If
at
you think
least
this year is
we'll
bad,
get
wait
it-
till next year.
We'll get it done at the same time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
You have a question?
Have you talked to the county about reducing the speed limit on County B?
We have. I think that once that connection's done, and especially if they put the roundabout in there, they'll have to do it. But we don't really have the jurisdiction on there, but I think their position, whether it's the county or the state, is people are gonna travel as fast as they are comfortable traveling. So what we try to do is whatever we can to do things like narrowing the roads or putting the calming devices or whatever we have to do. But yeah, that is a concern, because even coming out Lincoln right now can be a little iffy. I don't live too far from there. So the county will have to make that determination, but we definitely have conversations with them about that.
But all the way from Williams Drive to 51, really, to me, should be dropped to 45.
Yeah, and their concern is if you drop it, but people continue to travel at speed that they're comfortable with, that can create more accidents, people getting rear-ended. So the plan right now is where this access would be, and you can kind of see it come together, there would be a turn lane here
Yeah.
versus, thankfully they're not putting another roundabout there, but they are gonna put like a turn lane for in and out of there to hopefully make it safer. But it's definitely concerning. The county and especially the state, they're not real open to adding access on highways where the speed is fast. They originally, Stoughton Trailers wanted to be able to access into here from the roundabout, and the DOT said no.
That's a good thing.
So that's why you have this internal loop here. That's how that came to be originally. It was just gonna be this part here, and you were gonna come in from here. And, it wasn't too surprising to me when the DOT said no. Any other questions? Yes?
I just, I can't remember what you said. What is the purple area?
The purple is to be determined.
Okay.
More than likely, it'll be either multifamily or commercial. It really depends on the market, you know, what starts to sell. Some of this area, when it comes to the utilities, some of it for the sewer, they call it being gravity fed, where you can angle the pipe, but some of these areas, they have to put in a lift station to help pump the sewage. So some of this will be developed quicker than others, because when you put in those lift stations, it costs a whole lot of money. And same thing with the roundabout. So what they're trying to do right now is focus on their headquarters and then what I would call the low-hanging fruit. And then hopefully they'll have success selling these lots and they can generate enough revenue to complete the lift station. And then we'll see what happens with the market. You know, if these are commercial and if there's demand for commercial there, or maybe, you know, if these all sell out, and, you know, maybe they'll come back and say, let's do, you know, single-family homes or something like that there. You know, but that could be a couple of years away.
Where's Eggleston's Woods on that map?
Yellow.
That's gonna be,
Where the yellow is.
Right at the bottom.
yeah, it's at the bottom.
It's where all the yellow is, it mostly.
Yeah, it's kinda, let's see.
No, Eggleston's Woods is very close to 51.
It's really not on there.
No, it would be kind of, here's the woods here,
Okay.
Oh.
because this is where the barricade is here, because you can't come through there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So nothing will change for them?
No, no, we have an agreement with Dunkirk and the neighbors there that that barricade stays there. We would love to open it up. In fact, they allowed us to open it up during the first phase of construction, but then we had to bring it back for our agreement. You know, depending on how the traffic flows and how this develops, maybe the people in Eggleston's Woods might change their mind, because then they don't have to deal with all this coming out. They could just go down this way, but that's up to them. They'll have to initiate that because, you know, they wanted the agreement.
Isn't that all city property?
Eggleston's Woods is not. It's Dunkirk property.
Oh, it's a little island?
Yeah, it is an island. I
Like
don't know how
Maple
that
Bluff?
came to be, but I know the people that live there are happy the way it is. And what we tried to do when we did the 51 West development is we tried to use the park and the trail to provide that buffer to respect their privacy. They've enjoyed all them years there. And the same thing with Stoughton Trailers, is we encouraged them. Initially, they were talking about building this down here. I said, that's probably not gonna go over very well with the neighbors. So we moved it up here, and with the grading being lower, you'll hardly even see it from the school because you have the big hill behind the school. And we thought, well, at least if we put single-family homes here, the people that live in the woods will be, you know, more comfortable with that. But really, the 51 West is really the area that we try to use the parkland and the trails as the buffer to respect the folks that live there.
And what are the green blobs?
The green, those are, some of these are different types of ponds, basically. So you have a lot of on-site stormwater management because this is a low wet area. And depending on the science is how they design this, and all those plans are designed to accommodate what we would call a 200-year flood. And those designs have to be approved by the Capital Area Regional Planning Commission. So they has to be able to handle the water runoff, and all this is working together. Ultimately, it gets filtered into the ponds that are over by Virgin Lake, and eventually it all ends up in the river, but hopefully by the time it gets there, it's all been filtered. So it's a pretty elaborate system. All the stuff from Walmart, same thing. It comes across Jackson, goes through this, and it's pretty complicated, but they, you know, plan ahead on it pretty well. So we think it'll be better than it was even before they began with, because there's always a lot of water in those fields anyway.
That was why Walmart gave, part of the reason Walmart gave up on that location originally was what the state wanted them to do to
Yeah, and the standards have increased even from that. We used to design them for a 50-year flood, and when we did 51 West development, we were the first municipality in the county that required them to do the 200-year flood plan. And we were able to do that because they're using TIF money anyway, which basically pays for all that extra cost of doing it, but we wanted to make sure we did it right, and the developer agreed to that. Anything else? You had enough? All right, enjoy the rest of your day.
I know it's out of your jurisdiction, but